What is up? Welcome to the channel. So today I'm going to be talking about sniper rifles and the best sniper rifle loadouts, all the different ones that I think are viable, what weapon I would recommend using to complement that, and future weapons that I think would be good to complement snipers once the current meta changes up a little bit. So I'm just going to give recommended builds and explain the situations that they're best for. So there's like 5 different snipers that I think are viable right now, and they're all kind of good at different things a little bit. Got some all rounders in there, some for long range, some for aggressive. Um, Mostly talking about like Recon Strat. This is kind of like my last video in the best loadouts series that I've been doing for the last month or so, where I've covered like each play style, where there was like aggressive builds, balanced loadouts, and then now we're doing some Recon Sniper Strat builds. But yeah, if you guys like the content, consider subscribing. We're gonna jump in here, and I will show you all of my recommended loadouts for sniping. All right, so there's like 4 or 5 viable sniper rifles right now, and I'm gonna go through all of them and give you the best builds for each one and tell you where they're the best, like what situation they're the best in. But to start with, I want to talk about what you're using as your sniper complement, so your second weapon. For me, I'm always using the FFAR right now, and that's just because it's so dominant up close, and it's really not that bad at range either. I think when the FFAR catches a nerf, which hopefully it will be soon, you'll start to see maybe some Grozas, depending on if they nerf the Groza or not. It probably, because a lot of the attachments are very similar between the Groza and the FFAR. If a FFAR, like the Raider stock, for example, if that gets nerfed on the FFAR, it might also get nerfed on the Groza. So we'll see. But also, I think we might see a lot of Modern Warfare M4s, Ram 7s, maybe the XM4 too. I still don't like the XM4 very much, but I know some people really do. But the Ram 7 was really popular before Cold War integration as a sniper complement, so I think we'll see that come back when the FFAR gets nerfed. And also the Modern Warfare M4 is just always a great all-around sniper complement weapon. So this is the FFAR that I use with all of my snipers. So whether I'm running Pelington, Kar98, HDR, SPR, I'm running this gun exclusively, and it's just because the TTK is so ridiculously good. And this is the build that I use. So I actually don't run a barrel right now because it already has 40 meters of range with the agency suppressor. So I don't feel like it really needs the barrel. And I love having an optic. I just feel like I hit more shots with the optic. I get all the time asked all the time why I use an optic, and I just feel like there's times where I miss shots because I don't have an optic. So that's the only reason. I think the iron sights are great on the gun, and I know tons of people think they're good enough, but for me personally, I like to run an optic. So you can make that decision for yourself, but you could always swap out the optic or the Raider stock for a barrel, and the barrels I'd recommend would be the reinforced heavy, which gives you good bullet velocity boost and a good range boost, or the Ranger gives you the best bullet velocity, so easiest to hit your targets at range. And then I believe the ultralight has the most damage range still. So if you want most damage range, then you're going to want to use the ultralight, best bullet velocity, Ranger, or if you want a mix of the two, you want the reinforced heavy. So I'm going to start with the most aggressive or most up close sniper first, and then move back. So we're going to start with Kar98 because this is the, I know it's a marksman rifle technically, but it's basically a sniper rifle at 1 shot to the head, which is kind of the criteria I'm using for this criterion. So the standard build is just monolithic, longest barrel, tac laser, and then either sniper scope or variable. I think most people probably run sniper, and if I run variable, I pretty much keep it on the high zoom at all times. And then it's kind of the last attachment that you get a lot of debate between. A lot of people use, I'd say the most common probably is the sport comb. So that's the ADS stock. So this is going to have super, super fast ADS. I personally prefer the precision comb. I've talked about this before, and I will actually link the video and the exact timestamp where I talk about why I like aiming stability so much from an older video. So I actually use the precision comb when I use the Kar98 just because I love having high aiming stability. And it still has the fastest ADS time of all the snipers. So the only time you're going to lose, like in a situation where you need to ADS against another sniper, is when you're coming up against a Kar98 that has that sport comb stock on there. So I don't know. I feel like you can get away with it. I do see the benefit of using the sport comb. Obviously, though, it has the fastest ADS time by far of any sniper rifle. And then sometimes people will swap that out. Instead of using a stock, they use sleight of hand, which is also, I always also done this a lot. This is a really good build. But this is pretty standard. Tac laser is great because it helps with that aiming stability and is awesome for also aim locking steadiness, which is really nice as you're strafing and stuff. You're really steady with a tac laser, and obviously aim down sight time is helped significantly with that. So Kar 98 is fantastic. It's a very aggressive sniper. If you're trying to take engagements only inside like 150 meters, it's a great option. So a lot of the time when I'm running Recon Strat, what I'll do is I'll get overkill on the first loadout with Kar 98, and then an FFAR. And when we finally get to the point where we're gonna get set up and we get our second loadout, and it looks like it's gonna be a top prison game or something, I will swap out my Kar 98 for like an HDR or an LW3, something that's actually like a long range sniper. So I use both depending on the situation, depending on the circles, and you can just kind of make that decision yourself. If it looks like you're going to be in a situation where you need longer range snipes, then just pick up your longer range sniper at the second loadout, because usually in the middle during rotations and things, you're going to want a Kar 98 over an HDR because your engagements are going to be a lot closer up if you have any engagements. So that's kind of the logic I use when I build guns for the Recon Strat. All right, and then after the Kar 98, the next most aggressive sniper is probably the Pelington. So the Pelington kind of fits in between the Kar 98 and the SPR. It's closer to the Kar 98. So this is the standard build for the Pelington: Rap Suppressor, Combat Recon, Axial Arms 3X, and the Fast Loader. And then the last attachment, kind of up in the air currently. So they added these attachments that say they help with aiming stability, the Bruiser Grip, and there's a couple. So I don't remember what the other one is, but I tested all these attachments that now say they help with aiming stability, and they don't do anything still, and that was relatively recent. So hopefully they patch that soon. That will make the Cold War snipers much, much more viable. But the Pelington already doesn't have very bad aiming sway. It's about the same as like Kar 98 with the aiming speed stock instead of the aiming stability stock. So there's some sway there, but it's not horrible. And the huge benefit of the Pelington is you get this Axial 3X, which has the same zoom as the Kar 98 sniper scope, but it has no glint. Still, it has no glint. I don't think it's ever going to have glint either. I don't know if they'll ever fix the zoom to match up with the Modern Warfare guns or not, but currently it has no glint and it has the same zoom as a Kar 98 sniper scope. So you get a lot of zoom and a clear sight picture without giving away your position, which is really huge for sniper rifles. Now I love the Kar 98. I love the Pelington. I think they're both great. You just have to use them both and decide which one feels better for you. I know a lot of people don't like the snapping animation of the Cold War snipers. I actually kind of like it because I feel like I have a clear sight picture all the way up until I'm zoomed in and then I'm right on the target. Whereas the Kar 98 kind of obscures your view for a second as you're scoping in. But I mean, I see both sides of it. So for the last attachment, you could do something like the Raider pad or the combat stock. These make it so you strafe really fast, so you can like peek corners and take a shot really quickly against another sniper or somebody else. And it's pretty powerful, actually. It works really well. It can be hard to hit your shots while you're strafing with those, but I'd give them a try because you can do some crazy stuff with those stocks on the Pelington. And then if you're not going to use that, hopefully, like I said, in the future, Bruiser Grip will fix aiming stability. You can use Bruiser Grip, but right now it doesn't do anything. So I always use the bipod. It doesn't really feel like it does anything to me, but it's like, what else am I going to put there? I guess you could put maybe like the target designator, get like 4% extra damage range or something, but I don't know. It's annoying that we don't have an aiming stability attachment because that's really what the Cold War snipers need. All right, and then next up we have the SPR. So the SPR has much better bullet velocity than the Pelington and the Kar 98, so it's much more hit scan. It's not hit scan. It used to be hit scan when it first came out with the Norma and the Lapua mags, but it's not anymore. So it has really good bullet velocity, has decent ADS times, and it's just a fantastic all-around sniper. It has better reload times than the Kar 98 too. In my opinion, this is one of the top snipers in the game right now, and you just don't see people using it for some reason, probably because it's not the best up close and it's not the best at range. It's just really good everywhere. But for me personally, this is my favorite sniper in the game right now. I use variable because the default sniper scope, the Solo Zero SPR, has less, even though it says it has 7x zoom, it has less zoom than the Kar 98. So I use the variable zoom, and I leave it on high zoom at all times. The ADS difference between these two is not that significant, so you can get away with using the variable zoom for sure. But I love this gun. I think it's really underused. There's so many people that run the Kar 98, and so many people that run the HDR, but like the SPR is fantastic up close and at range. It's just not quite as good at either one of those things. So like a mid-range sniper or an all-around sniper, the SPR with Norma mags is the go-to. So talk about the attachments real fast. Monolithic always on snipers, just for high bullet velocity. SPR 26-inch, this is the longest barrel, so it'll give you the fastest bullet velocity, which is what you're looking for with a sniper. And then Norma mags also give you the fastest bullet velocity boost. So those are the three most important attachments on the gun for sure. And then obviously tac laser, fantastic for ADS time, fantastic for aiming stability. This is just one of the best attachments in the game, and it would make Cold War guns a lot better if they would add a tac laser for Cold War guns. So that's something they could think about in the future, or just make the aiming stability attachments work for the Cold War snipers. But on the SPR, I think this is pretty much the go-to build. I don't really think there's a whole lot else you can do here for using it like a sniper, and you can kind of mess around and maybe use the Dragoon barrel and like a no-glint optic, so like a Ronin. This, you could also put the fast bolt on it there with the feather bolt. You can rechamber quicker. I've tried this. It's fun to screw around with. It's not very good, but it's really fun to mess with. Might be good for like Rebirth, but it's not very good in Warzone with the big map. But overall, I think the SPR is dramatically underused. I think it's a fantastic gun, and I think more people should try it. And then for the rest of the sniper rifles, there's really only two more that I would say are pretty viable, and that would be the Tundra and the HDR. So these are both the long range highest bullet velocity snipers. So the Tundra has the highest bullet velocity in the game, but it has really, really bad aim sway, idle sway. So if they ever get these aiming stability attachments working, like the bruiser grip, then we might see the LW3 become meta for Recon Strat over top of the HDR. Right now, pretty much all the Recon guys use the HDR when they are doing their prison games or any long range sniping games. They pretty much all use the HDR, and that's because of a combination between ADS time and aim sway and bullet velocity. So the build for this is still Raptor Suppressor, Combat Recon. So I believe it was the Cavalry Lancer. Yeah, I believe it's the Cavalry Lancer actually boosts your bullet velocity almost as much as the Combat Recon, and it says that on the Combat Recon it hurts your idle sway. But I also tested this, and there's zero difference, so you still want to use the Combat Recon, even though it's a really small difference. You still want to be using the Combat Recon barrel over the Cavalry Lancer. And then Optic, I either use the Royal and Cross 4X or the Axial Arms 3X. Again, both of these don't have glint, so that's a huge benefit to the Cold War snipers again, that you can't get really with the Modern Warfare snipers. But overall, I personally still prefer the HDR, I think, over the LW3. I've tried to use the LW3 a bunch, but it's just, the sway is so bad. I really do think if they fix the idle sway problem, like if they actually make the attachments do what they say they do, then we will have probably a switch from the HDR to the LW3, but we'll see. It also doesn't have great zoom, so the Hangman RF also doesn't have scope glint, which gives you 6x, but it doesn't have a very good reticle. So it's kind of a trade-off there. Like on an HDR, you can have tons of zoom, which the Recon guys all love having a lot of zoom for long shots. Like Iron always uses variable at high zoom on his HDR, and I don't think the Hangman quite has that much zoom, and the reticle's bad, and you can get the reticle that's awesome on the HDR. So it's like there's downsides to the LW3 for sure beyond just the idle sway, but I think if they fix the idle sway, it'll at least come in line with the HDR, and you could probably pick either one. But same story here as with the Pelington. You get these 4 attachments, and then after that, it's like, what do you use? Because bipod doesn't really feel like it does anything. The aiming stability attachments don't do anything. Again, you could use the combat stock or the Raider pad to get those crazy strafe speeds, which can make it, easy to peek corners and things. But there's just really no 5th attachment that's like great for the Cold War snipers right now, which is kind of a weird situation to be in. But overall, it's a good gun. It just needs help with the idle sway. All right, last up we have the HDR. This is probably still, like I've been talking about, the king of like the long range snipers. So it has really high bullet velocity. It has a good optic. It has a good reticle. It has relatively good aim sway, especially compared to the LW3. So it kind of just does everything pretty well at range. The ADS times are not very good. Um, this is the most common build you'll see. This is what pretty much all the Recon guys, like Iron, Shaded, Yeet, those guys all will run this build where it's monolithic, longest barrel, tack laser for ADS times and aiming stability, and then the Stalker Scout, which is the ADS reducing stock. This is the most common build, and then they'll use variable zoom most of the time, just to get that high zoom. It says 12.6, but it's not actually 12.6, especially compared to the Cold War guns. But the variable zoom scope, if you actually have the oceanographer, you get a much better sight picture. So it makes with the HDR, when you scope in, you get the black rings around the side where you can't see anything on the sides. But if you have the oceanographer blueprint, or the variable zoom scope, or the CDL champs blueprint, those both have basically the AX50 scope on the on variable, so you have a clear sight picture around the outside of the scope. It doesn't make a huge difference, but it's just something little that makes the gun a little bit better. But the HDR, like I said, second highest bullet velocity behind the LW3, but it's not that much different, and it's just really good in all ways for long range sniping. So it's still probably the king. I hope the LW3 gets a nice little buff here pretty soon, with the aiming stability attachments actually working. But for now, I think the HDR is pretty much the go-to for Recon Strat and just in general long range sniping. All right, so real quickly, I'm going to go through the stats for these guns on TrueGameData. I don't have the Cold War snipers up yet, so I'm going to be doing that very soon. I have most of the data taken. I just don't have the damage profiles yet, so once I get the damage profiles, I can put them up on the website. I'll link all the videos below, though, because I've talked about the LW3 and I've talked about the Pelington a ton. Good video if you're interested to watch would be the Car 98 versus Pelington video I did. And then I've also talked about the LW3 before, so I'll try to link those videos down below for you. But as far as stats go for the guns that are on the website currently, Car 98, SPR, and HDR, starting with fire rate, Car 98 and SPR have good fire rates, so 44 RPM and 47 RPM for the SPR. SPR actually shoots a little bit faster than the Car 98, but the scope wobbles a bunch as you're reloading the bolt, so it kind of makes it harder to pull those shots off that fast. But in certain situations, it's really, really nice to be able to do that. So the HDR is all the way down at 32 RPM, and that difference there can make it can be huge depending on the situation. Like if somebody's crawling behind cover, I can finish people a lot easier with the SPR than the HDR, just because I can get that second shot off a lot quicker. And same with the Car 98, obviously, with the 44 RPM. As far as ADS times go, all three of these builds are the fast ADS builds I talked about. So the Car 98, this is with the fast ADS stock, and the HDR is also with the fast ADS stock. And the SPR, you don't really have that extra attachment because you have to put the normal mags on there. So as far as ADS times go, Car 98 is by far the fastest. SPR's quite a bit slower at 520, and then the HDR is like another 70 milliseconds slower at almost 600. So SPR is pretty slow. This is one of the reasons why you don't see it that much, probably. But it doesn't feel that bad to me, and I love the bullet velocity. I love to use it exactly like this. I use it right in between the Car 98 and the HDR, so it's still pretty good up close, and it's still pretty good at range, just because it has really good bullet velocity. But speaking of the bullet velocity, these are the numbers down here. So the Car 98 is at 1,033 meters per second. SPR with Norma mags is 1175. Then the HDR is around 1210 meters per second. So the SPR is approaching the HDR bullet velocity. It's just that you can't get that high zoom scope. I think if you could get the HDR zoom scope on the SPR, you would see people like Iron and those guys, you'd see them using it a lot more. I think the high zoom is crucial to long range recon strat sniping, and that unfortunately the SPR for some reason has like the lowest zoom of all the snipers. It has lower zoom even than the Car 98 scopes, so it kind of holds it back. But if you're using it as a semi-aggro sniper and something that's just good everywhere, I think the high zoom of the variable zoom scope is enough to use it that way. So that's why I just love the SPR, mostly because of this bullet velocity. I just feel like I can hit people so easy in that 100 to 200 meter range, much easier than the Car 98, which is almost 20% slower. All right, quick notes on the rest of the snipers. So M82 and the Rytech both have really low bullet velocity. M82 is better than the Rytech. They both have low bullet drop as well, so again, I will link my bullet drop video below, but they're unique in that for some reason their bullet drop is not the same as the others in terms of proportionality to bullet velocity. So the M82 and Rytech both have much lower bullet drop. They're both not very good just because the bullet velocity is so low, it's hard to hit moving targets. The Dragunov isn't a one-shot headshot kill, so I'm not really talking about those guns today. It is a two-shot chest shot, which is unique, and you can get those shots off pretty quick. But overall, everybody knows it's not great. I think it could be okay if you got used to it and you learned to hit those two chest shots, but overall, tough to use for sure. AX50 is kind of just a bad HDR. The ADS times are almost identical to the HDR. You just get quite a bit lower bullet velocity, so it's kind of like why would you use it over the HDR in terms of statistics? The AX50 has great sound, has good recoil, looks awesome, but in terms of actual numbers, it's hard to recommend using the AX50 over the HDR in any situation. And I think that's it. So yeah, Kar98, SPR, LW3, HDR, and Pelington are the 5 snipers that I think are in a good spot right now and all very viable. Alright guys, well I hope you found the video interesting and useful. Wanted to give you my rundown of all the best snipers in the game, best loadouts in the game. But yeah, if you like the content, if you like the website, consider subscribing again. Helps me grow. It's usually around 50% of you aren't subscribed. It helps me keep doing this and helps me keep TrueGameData alive for future updates and games and things. So yeah, anyways, hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys all in the next one.